apologies for absences. We're all here. Any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Item 3 on the agenda is the Scottish Fire and Rescue Committee Performance Report. And we'll hand over.
Good morning all, thank you for having me at your meeting. My name is Bruce Milne. For those that haven't met me before, I'm the Group Commander for Highland Central. Roddy Chapman, the Station Commander, sends his apologies. He would have attended today to provide you with the update, but he's actually on leave at the moment, so I've sort of stepped in for him to give you the Q2 performance report for July to September 2022. I believe you should all have a copy, or should have had a copy of the paper in advance, is that correct, councillors?
We do, yes.
Yeah, smashing. Okay, so I won't go through it verbatim, but I'll pick out some certain points if I may, please, and just feel free to ask any questions as we go through. The key performance indicators that we're reporting on are the sort of following, which is accidental dwelling fires, fatal accidental dwelling fire casualties, non-fatal casualties from accidental dwelling fires, deliberate fires, special services, and in particular road traffic collisions, and what we class as false alarm UFAS, so unwanted false alarm signals. And there's a bit in the end in terms of station availability and what we're doing. As I go through the performance, I'll talk a little bit about each part and what we're doing in relation to maintaining performance or improving in performance. So to start with, in terms of all accidental dwelling fires, we've seen a very slight increase. We're sitting at an amber there, we're sitting at 2 for that quarter. It is still relatively small numbers in terms of what we expect to see in other areas. What we do in relation to that, we're always striving to have it at 0, and we're doing our best to do that. Our best defence at that is by delivering and providing home fire safety visits, and that's when crews, operational crews, as well as some full-time crews can go into areas that are either referred to us or that we identify, that we can go into their homes, carry out a safety check, a fresh pair of eyes, give them some guidance and advice on the fitting of new smoke detectors that are in line with Scottish Government legislation. And that really is one of the best things that we do in terms of trying to reduce that as much as we can. And if need be, fitting alarms ourselves, if people just are unable to do that, we can do that as well. So we're sitting at 2 for that period. We also work in partnership with a partner agencies to try and reduce that risk further as well through referrals and through identification of people that may benefit from that. In terms of accidental dwelling fire casualties, fatals and casualties, they're both sitting at 0, which I'm pleased to say. We haven't had any in the Badenoch and Strathspey area during that reporting period. If we then go on to deliberate fires, I'll talk a little bit about here. You will have seen that in the report that it has seen quite a significant spike up to 12. Now again, I say significant, it's still relatively low numbers compared to many other areas across Scotland. However, for the Badenoch and Strathspey area, it is quite a jump. What I can tell you is sitting at 12 for that reporting period, Q2. 5 of those 12 incidents we attended were at Lochmorloch. 7 of those incidents occurred between sort of 10 o'clock and midnight, and 3 of which occurred all at the same location, and as I said, in Lochmorloch on the 19th of July, sort of between 22:50 and 23:34 hours. Now, what we've done in relation to that is we've worked with our operational crews and our on-call, they used to be called retained staff, but our on-call crews have all contributed and worked along with some of the sort of rangers within the Cairncroom National Park to try and reduce that risk. We've had our on-call support watch commanders go out and deliver safety messages in that area as well. So we have been quite proactive in terms of trying to reduce that risk, and also using any of our social media outlets that we can to talk about the risk and the consequence of deliberate fire setting. So hopefully moving forward, we will see a reduction in that. I think, given as well the fact that it was, some of those occurred during summer holiday times season, as we move into the tail end of the year, hopefully we'll see a natural reduction in that anyway. But it's something that we're continuing to work alongside our partners, and in particular the Rangers, to try and do patrols and to try and send out that sort of fire safety message to people in the area. I'll move on to special service road traffic collisions. We're sitting at amber there, we're sitting at 8 for the reporting period. I think, in reality, we had a very quiet sort of couple of years prior to that because of COVID, because of the restrictions on people's movements and the restriction on tourism. As we enjoy the benefit of these restrictions being lifted, sadly we're seeing an increase in road traffic collisions, which I think is a direct consequence of the increased volume of traffic on our roads, in particular the A9, and the number of travellers on that sort of piece of road as well. Of those 8 incidents, 6 of them occurred on the A9 or a junction on the A9. Sadly, as a result of those 8 incidents, there were 5 fatalities, and a further 2 people were taken to hospital with what we thought were serious injuries. 6 of those 8 incidents were road traffic collisions involving multiple vehicles. Now, what we do is we work along with our partners to try and reduce that road risk on the A9 by carrying out safety initiatives where possible and supporting the council, as obviously they have the sort of legislative duty to reduce road risk. But we will work with the council and Police Scotland to try and reduce that risk. It is quite challenging because it's not one particular part of the road. It's throughout quite a bit of road. And there's been a number of reasons for that, some potentially being weather, some potentially being visitors to the area from other countries. So it is quite challenging to try and reduce that risk, because it's not just about targeting one particular village or town. These are people that are coming potentially from out with the Badenoch and Strathspey area, but they happen to be travelling through it. So we will continue to work with our partners in any way we can to try and reduce that road risk, whether it be through crash live events, which we can hold on station or at particular venues, where we can, and we're looking at doing that potentially next year, into the spring next year, where we'll have, a sort of mock car crash and crews demonstrating what happens at a car crash. And that's usually a partnership approach that's done alongside police and paramedics, and we do one of these events. And I'm looking at trying to get one of them for next spring. Excuse me. That's where we are in terms of road traffic collisions. In terms of UFAS, we've seen a further increase in that. What I can say, of that 25 UFAS incidents that we had in Q2, there were 17 different premises involved. It's not just one particular repeat offender. We do have processes in place where if we do have one particular building or premises that is a repeat offender, then we will refer that to our fire safety enforcement team, who may well go out and carry an audit and provide further advice. At all UFAS incidents that we attend, the crew that are in attendance will give immediate frontline advice and point them towards information that they can, reduce unwanted fire alarm signals. And as I said, if it does escalate or it becomes a repeat problem, our fire safety enforcement teams may get involved to provide some sort of firmer support and guidance. But to my knowledge, we haven't had any of that within Badenoch and Strathspey. In terms of station availability and staffing, we've seen an increase in Aviemore. Carbridge remains static. You can see the figures there, and also the sort of breakdown of male and female firefighters. Can you see, Grant and I believe the second appliance, they are struggling at times with the availability for that. And I know that Station Commander Roddy Chapman has done quite a bit of work in terms of trying to recruit for that area, and getting people into the recruitment process that we have. And I believe there are some within the process at the moment. So I'm moving down the table then, you can see that Canusi is 2 under establishment. Again, all these stations that we've got, we're continually trying to recruit for. Nethay Bridge still remains at 0. I believe for quite some time they've been unable to get any interest for people coming forward to staff that CRU. And Newtonmore is sitting under establishment as well. However, it is available, to go out and go to the incidents that is required. But likewise, Roddy has been in that area actively trying to recruit staff. So that's where we are with the figures. Councillors, is there any questions for myself or anything you'd like to ask in terms of the performance?
I think the one thing that concerns me is the station availability. You're sitting at the moment of 61% manning level, and it only goes up to 72% if you exclude Nethay Bridge. So I think that must be really concerning.
We are actively trying to recruit people, and we would seek your support in that as well, if it's possible. I think one of the challenges you've got is that the demographic has changed in a lot of small villages and towns. We don't have the same amount of people working within there. you know, they're going out with the village to work, and that brings difficulty in terms of recruitment, because we need to make sure that we have people that are available, that can answer it, you know, respond to a station within sort of 5 to 8 minutes, and that are fit enough, able enough to go through the process. So it's not through lack of trying. We have tried extremely hard to try and get people to come forward, but we need the people to come forward in order to get them into a process, to get them assessed, to get them recruited, to get them put on a training course. We are trying very, very hard to do that, but we need members of the community to step up and want to do it. And we've tried through social media, and I would seek support from the committee if I can, please, and anybody, in terms of trying to share that recruitment message and opportunity, because it does bring with it good opportunities for candidates to come forward, good transferable skills. So maybe try and seek any support we can, but we are, rest assured, councillors, we are working extremely hard to try and continue to raise the profile, use our social media, have open days at stations to try and recruit people, to get them in, to show them what the job's about. You know, we've developed our recruitment process as well, where we've got Prep 1 and Prep 2, and that's all about preparing people for the process, taking them into the station so they understand what's ahead of them, the fitness tests, the medical side of it, and the point of entry tests. That's all done, and we've developed that because this isn't just in this area. I think across all of the on-call across Scotland, we're seeing challenges in terms of recruitment, and we are, as a service, we've already looked at our recruitment process, how to improve it, how to improve feedback, and how to help people through the process. Hopefully that gives a bit of comfort that we are working hard on that, and will continue to do so.
Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the report. Just following, I've got a few questions for you, so just bear with me, please. Just following on that, I think the Prep 1 and Prep 2 initiatives have been really, really good, and one of the two prongs to that. One is, I know locally here in Granton, there is one person desperate to work, but they can't get accommodation, and rented accommodation is a big challenge as well. So I would encourage, you know, working with Highland Council housing team as well. You know, it's not a magic wand, but I think it's just we need public sector partners to work with the council. The other thing was, I think that now that you're allowed access to schools again, I think that's where your Prep 1 would really, you know, explaining that in the schools, because I think that's a possible opportunity as well. And we do have some Ukrainians in the valley as well that are keen to assist, and that maybe you could maybe reach out to them too. So that was that. The other thing I was going to ask was, did you have any incidents at the weekend with, like your poor colleagues in Dundee and Edinburgh? Did you have any incidents in the Highlands that we need to really work in public education?
I'm just writing down your questions there. So thank you for your feedback on Prep 1 and Prep 2. And you know, we are working extremely hard with that. In terms of the accommodation, at the moment, it's not something we've explored in terms of working alongside housing. I think that would really sit with the individual, but it's a good point. It is a good point for moving forward. The school visits, I know they've done them, because I spoke to our on-call watch commander, a guy called Stuart McPherson, and he's been into some of the schools locally. The difficulty we've got is that we cannot let anybody join until they're 18 years of age. So at school, they're going to have that gap from usually when they leave school, maybe a year or two, you know, from secondary school before they're eligible. But we have been in and we have talked to some of the high schools in terms of what the fire service has to offer. We tie it into two things. One is to do with the willful fires message, you know, and a sort of safety theme. And the other part is to talk about the opportunity within the fire service, because and I can't stress it enough, it gives people fantastic opportunity, and it really can help shape people getting that exposure in the fire service of the incidents that we go to, the transferable life skills, you know, that they gain within the service. So we have done that and we'll continue to do that. And in terms of the incidents at the weekend, I wasn't on call this weekend. I know that there was a bonfire within an organised and stewarded event within Inverness. I haven't heard of any issues. I did hear the awful news, you know, about some of the things within Edinburgh at the weekend. Can't comment on that because I wasn't involved, but to my knowledge, I've not seen anything since I've come back this morning. I've not seen anything to say there was any issues. So touch wood, that is the case, and we didn't have any issues. So we'll take a bit of comfort from that. Does that answer everything, Councillor?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
No, we both covered it. I was going to ask.
Station availability. I'm concerned about this. Have you been putting people in from other areas if you have, let's say, a fire and Lethe bridge, have you been able to pull people in from other areas to deal with it? What
we do is there's two elements to that. There's a sort of preemptive part. So we have a certain amount of what we call on-call watch commanders, support officers. Now these are whole-time people Monday to Friday, most of which are on-call or retained. We've changed the name, by the way, from retained to on-call. So most of these people are on-call within their own village or town, but they work Monday to Friday as an on-call watch commander, support watch commander, and they have groups or clusters of stations which they look after. One element of their job is if they see a shortfall within that area, they will deploy and work out of that area for the day to provide fire cover. So that's one of the things we do. And if we need to put two into that area, in a particular station, then we will. We try and balance our station availability as best as we can. Then the second thing is, if there is an incident, if there is a fire within a particular village or town, as part of the command and control process that sits behind all of this, our control rooms automatically mobilise additional resource to supplement and back that up. And, for example, if we had a really big fire in Inverness, then Inverness will automatically be backfilled because it's a strategic station with people standing by in the station. Maybe not doing anything, but actually standing by in the station. So we have guaranteed fire cover. Now, likewise, if we had, let's just say, a really big hill fire somewhere, around Granton, and it stripped the whole of the fire cover from the area, it's very, very likely that our control room teams would make sure that there are strategic pumps, where required. It won't be for every station, but where required, so that we can then provide further fire cover should something come in on the back of that. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Yes, thank you. It's very reassuring.
Thank you.
Okay, members, you're invited to comment and scrutinise the area performance report, which you have done. So thank you very much for joining us this morning, and have the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you. Goodbye. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Item 4 on our agenda is the Granton and Spey traffic calming in support of 20 mph speed limit. So I'm assuming we have. Yes, we do.
Yes.
Ross, before we go any further, there's a paper coming before E&I committee on Thursday, which will commit the council to the rollout of 20 mph limits all across Highland. What impact, if any, does this have in this paper? I realise it's not in your paper, but it's just something I'd like you to explain to us before you start.
Yes, so the paper going to E&I tomorrow is about the early adoption of Transport Scotland's new policy for 20 mph limits. How it impacts the Granton scheme, it doesn't really impact it. It could have an impact where if you reject the traffic calming today, then previously we would have gone back and re-looked at the scheme and decided whether or not it was safe to go ahead without the traffic calming. What may happen here is that we would need to look at it, but potentially it might be that we just go ahead anyway. It's hard to say. We may go ahead, but we'd have to consider it carefully with the new rollout, because the new rollout isn't relying on traffic calming initially. We're coming back and reassessing sort of 2 or 3 times. So it shouldn't impact too much, but it'll depend, as I say, on your decision how we progress with if we do the whole lot, or do we remove the roads with traffic calming and then bring them in temporary in the summer on a temporary order to allow the full rollout. So it's not straightforward, but it should be okay. It shouldn't have a huge impact.
So I'm not entirely convinced, I'm not entirely sure I've got what you're saying to me.
Yeah, so
Basically this entire rollout right across Highland potentially will bring in traffic calming measures in every town and village throughout the Highlands.
yes,
Without traffic calming.
so it'll bring in a 20-mile-an-hour limit without traffic calming initially, and then roads will be reassessed to bring traffic calming where required. Whereas the current design guidance is, if the mean average speeds are above 24, bring in traffic calming, because we know from experience that that's hello.
Are we still recording? Or there is?
Yeah, you're back. we lost you for a minute or two.
I don't know what happened there. Everything went blank. I was like, oh. So yeah, to probably phrase it better, the new scheme that's going to committee brings everything in on a temporary traffic order for 18 months without traffic calming, but then after 3 months we carry out speed assessments, and we will do a first phase of additional speed traffic calming measures, and then another kind of 3 to 6 months down the line we'll do another set of assessments, and at that point we'll look at physical traffic calming measures where required. It's likely to be similar roads to we've already planned for here. We expect it to balance out, but what we don't know is how much. The Borders had much better speed reduction on signing and lining alone than has historically been seen, we think, because of a mass rollout. So we're hoping we'll get some of that here. The two main roads here, I think, because of the nature of those roads, even in a year's time, I think it's likely that something may be required, because they're quite wide open roads with not a lot on them. And then the stuff that we've proposed down Heathfield Road in front of the primary school was more to do with the school kids and protecting the area for them than it was about the current design guidance on traffic calming, particularly down at the primary school. That was on the back of the school's request to make that area safer. But the objections are for the other end, round by the grammar school and Heathfield.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ross. Apologies for my confusion. I'm a great believer in the reduction in speed and safety. I'm just wondering if we should we be considering a pause just now until the E&I decision, because you mentioned there the borders, and that has worked well. So it is my understanding is that it would be better to do an impact assessment after we've got the 20 miles per hour in, to make sure that we're targeting the correct areas, whether we need traffic calming measures or not. And the other thing is, you mentioned the primary school as well. I understood that should be 20 miles anyway.
The primary school has it has a part-time 20 at the moment.
Yeah, okay.
John.
I find this map very difficult to read. Is there any traffic calming in the high street here?
No, the traffic calming is up on the section at the Grantown Grammar School.
Right.
So if you come in from Grantown Grammar, turn left onto the kind of the main street into the village. Heathfield Road's got some, and then the kind of main road from the junction with the road to Grantown Grammar in kind of near the old folks home, the residential home there. So there's a little bit there as well. Kind of at the start, the main street didn't have speeds that required it. So that's where because we try and take a light touch with traffic calming as we can, we didn't put it, we only put it places where the mean average speeds were high enough to say that it's a requirement. And then everything else we look at kind of 3-6 months down the line after implementation. We tend to do that anyway with our 20 mile an hour schemes.
Yeah, could I just say, I'm very surprised at the speed that timber lorries come down the high street, but I don't want to see them being traffic calm because they'll be throwing their logs, the tree trunks off if they do that. But I'd like to see a slower speed in the high street from not just the timber lorries, but a lot of other very heavy traffic. Is there a solution?
Russell?
No, I mean, I think I would, it sounds like an agreement now, but I think we're all for 20 mile an hour speed limits, but I'm not sure about the traffic calming bumps or tables or whatever we want to call it at the moment.
That always concerns me. What about ambulances, people with spinal problems?
You've got to remember, you're in an area committee here, so it's not a two-way conversation.
Right.
So, I think basically, Ross, if you look at this, we are definitely committed to the fact that our towns and villages will be 20 mile an hour. However, we're not convinced about probably the extent of the traffic calming or the fact that there are speed limits. To our mind, basically, at the start of any 30 mile an hour limit, it should become 20. And then we would like to see the impact that that would have over the 18 months trial period, provided, of course, that the E&I committee approve this on Thursday or whenever it is. So, are we agreed to Miriam?
Yeah, just to reaffirm, I think it would be I think it would be wrong, if it was just too strong a word, I think it'd be wrong to proceed before the E&I committee, because we all embraced the borders and how they tackled the whole area. So I would prefer if we could pause this till after E&I.
So basically, on that, we're unanimously agreed that we are not approving the construction of traffic calming measures in Granton and Spey, but we are approving the introduction of 20 mile an hour speed limits without traffic calming, depending on what the E&I committee says.
So, Chair,
okay.
can I just ask for some clarification, just because I know the primary school are really keen on traffic calming around the school. That's more to do with pupil safety at a congested narrow area than it is to do with the existing speeds. So there's a round top hump and a set of cushions proposed on either side of the primary school. And from your decision that we would be holding on construction of those as well, but implementing the 20 mile an hour limit as it's currently designed. So it's just to see if you know, going ahead with the stuff at the primary school, which didn't actually have, well, there was objections to everything, but the objections were specifically around the top end of the town. But yeah, the school were really keen to see some form of traffic calming measures there, but I'll just so that you're fully aware.
Yeah, I fully support the school and I support it, but I wonder if we should consider referring and working with the Education Committee that are looking at, I know in Inverness and I think Skye as well, they've piloted some drop-off zones for young people. We could maybe look at that and maybe ask our ward manager to see who's doing what, and I'll certainly speak to the Chair of Education to see where we are in that on the Education Committee if the Chair is happy with that idea.
Does anyone disagree with Miriam?
No.
No, okay, Ross, I'm afraid that's it.
Okay.
We don't agree to traffic calming measure. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your time this morning. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Item 5, Housing Performance Report. I'm presuming we have Jake. Morning, Jake. Housing Performance Report.
Morning, members.
Over to you.
Thank you. So yeah, this is the housing performance report for Q2, covering the period 1st of April until the 30th of September. I don't intend to take you through the report in its entirety today, but I will just touch on some of the data that's included in the report. If I can firstly draw your attention to the two tables that appear at 5.3 and 5.6 in the report. The first of which relates to emergency repairs, and the second relating to non-emergency repairs. And I'm pleased to report that performance in both those areas is well within our target time. The next table at 6.2 in the report relates to our void performance. Again, performance in this area remains really strong and is well within target. Over the page to 7.2, this table relates to rent arrears, and members will note that Q2 arrears have increased when compared to some previous quarters. This is very much a trend we're seeing across Highland at the moment, and I think reflects the pressures that our tenants are under right now. And then finally, the table 8.4 is just simply a graph showing our homeless presentation numbers. And as always, very happy to take any questions.
Jake, I think the massive increase in rent arrears is very concerning. And it's fairly obvious that this is caused by the fact that many of our tenants are being driven into poverty by decisions made quite out with their control. And I think we need to make every effort to make sure that our tenants do not lose their home because of rent arrear. Miriam.
Thank you, Jake, for the clarity of the report. Some of the repairs and some of them that are deemed emergency, how many of those are caused by maltreatment by tenants, if any?
I don't have that detail to hand, Councillor Coburn. I would suggest not many, but I can't expand any more than that at the moment.
I understand that some local authorities have seen a big increase by tenants causing severe damage to their properties, and I'm just wondering if we are getting any what we can do to support tenants to look after their property as well. And I'm quite keen that we get. I know resources are challenging, but I'm keen that we support people to be good and safe tenants.
Yeah, thank you again, Councillor Coburn. I think some of that will fall out with the emergency repair side of things, but in terms of a kind of trend, in terms of damage and things, I think it's something we are seeing. And I think the key for us is our tenancy visits and regular visits to our tenants to try and catch some of these things early. And so we know about them before the property at some point comes back to us and is in really poor condition. So it's about getting in, seeing our tenants at home and offering advice and support.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Chair? The other thing, I'm delighted that the tenancy visits have started. Are your team being supported as being trauma informed and is aware? Because we know that there has been an increase of some challenges in our communities, and I'm keen that the staff are supported with these tools.
Yeah, I can answer that quite simply. Yeah, they are. The staff, there's fairly regular training for staff who are visiting properties, the officers that are visiting.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No? Jake, thanks very much for your time today, members. You're invited to, where are we? Consider the information provided by the Housing Performance Report, which you have done. So, thank you, Jake.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you all. Thank you.
Item 6, street names in Abingdon.
Thanks, Chair. It's myself that's going to present this paper. So I'll briefly introduce it. This report is in respect of street naming of the new Scotia Homes development in Aviemore. And the development comprises of 4 streets. And this paper invites the committee to discuss and agree an appropriate street name for the street shown in blue on Appendix 1. The council street naming process invites community councils to agree street names. However, in instances where there are disagreements, the streets in question are then presented to area committee for decision and agreement about an appropriate street name. There were 4 street names in this development, 3 of which the community council proposed streets for, which were passed. This one street, Street 4, it serves 37 properties, so I would invite members to discuss and agree an appropriate name, and I'm happy to take questions on the report.
Well, firstly, the name mentioned by the community council is not appropriate. I would propose that we use the name Larry Grew View, because that particular area looks straight down the Larry Grew. Many of the other names around, opposite the other side of the river, Callot Hill, Craigresage, etc., are already being used, and there is one other locally, but to be honest, it's unpronounceable in English. So Larry Grew View would be my opinion.
I support that.
Yeah.
That is agreed.
Thank you, Chair.
Just off the record, what is Pig Park Circus? Is it locally owned or something? I don't know.
No, the word circus is not being used. But the farm and the farmer used that name for that particular field.
Pig Park.
It was his pig park. That's where he kept his pigs, historically. Although no pigs have been kept on the farm for 40 years.
Okay.
In fact, 50 years. But it was known as the pig park. So that's where the name Pig Park came from.
Okay. Someone just creatively put circus in the end of that because it would be.
Yeah.
Should we, I don't know if this is appropriate for the area committee, but I'm just wondering if we should be reminding community councils that certain terminology is not necessarily appropriate going forward for the naming of street names, for example, but the one that we have just decided that is not appropriate.
Yeah, don't see why not.
The scheme of delegation, I understand, is being revised, and
I can invite our colleagues or my colleagues in the CAG team to maybe strengthen the guidance that's in that street naming process to stress that point to community councils.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I think the change in the guidance made it worse. All we used to get was the developer would suggest names that bear no relationship whatsoever to the area, and then we modified them to be something local. Now we have the developer who can propose names, we have the community council propose names, and we end up in the middle. I think the current guidance is relatively poor.
Agreed.
Happy to take that back and discuss it with CAG colleagues and see how we can improve it, Chair.
The improvement would be, to be honest, I think if we had more direct involvement, so the developer and the community council could suggest names, and then we would decide.
Yes.
But that's my opinion.
That's perfectly reasonable.
I'll feed that back. And,
okay. So we've agreed Larry View. Minutes of the previous meeting have already been agreed at full council, so they're really just there for your notice. So thank you all for your time today.
Right.